Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show that's all about speaking your truth, sharing your stories, and sparking the conversations that matter most. I'm your host, Rodney W. Collins, and this is the Speak On It Show. On this show, we dive deep into the thoughts, experiences, and ideas that shape our world. It's a place where voices are heard, perspectives are celebrated, and discussions are not just encouraged, but cherished. Whether it's culture, politics, personal growth, or just life's everyday adventures, we're here to explore it all. We've got engaging interviews, thought-provoking discussions, and sometimes we might even stir the pot a little bit. Speak On the Show is where we challenge the status quo, celebrate diversity, and engage in conversations that make us think, laugh, and grow. So get ready to be inspired, get ready to connect, and most importantly, get ready to speak your truth. Without further ado, let's jump into today's episode. It's time for the Speak On It Show with your host, Rodney W. Collins. Good morning, good morning, good morning. First and foremost, giving honor to the God who allows me to come at you in this manner on a weekly basis. I am Rodney W. Collins, and this is the Speak On It Show. How's everybody doing out there this morning? I appreciate y'all for tuning in, but let's go ahead and get one of these formalities out the way real quick. Let's do this here. We're broadcasting live on the Rodney W. Collins channel on YouTube and Facebook. You can tune in every Saturday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific. Like, share, subscribe, go to the page, go back. All the old videos are there. You can go watch old videos if you haven't caught up. Little splices here and there, some mind, body, and soul segments. Rodney W. Collins channel on YouTube and Facebook. You can go there, get the information you need, information you want. So how's everybody doing? Last week, I woke up to do the show. Just wasn't feeling it, y'all. I needed a mental health day. Do not be afraid or feel guilty about taking a mental health day when you need it. Now, we've talked about this when we talk about mental health. This is Mental Health Awareness Month. We've talked about this. And sometimes people think, that when you take time off, it shouldn't be identified as a mental health day or anything like that. But if you're taking a day off because you just need a break, you've recognized that you need a break from everything going on around you and just breathe and relax and let it go. Nothing wrong with that. Some people need to take a mental health break from the job. There's a lot of things going on at our jobs that, just ain't kicking at the time. So we need to take those breaks too. Brian Hoodie, good morning, my brother. Appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you for being a loyal listener of the show. I don't call people fans. Once you tune in, once you watch the show, you're part of the family after that. So I appreciate y'all for tuning in, man. What I found out in these coming up on 13 years I've been doing this show is that, we get a lot of people come in that have never listened to the show or don't know me or anything, but the feedback I get is appreciated. Some good, some bad. I take the good with the bad. However, I appreciate anybody that chooses to click on it, listen, like, subscribe, do what you got to do. This is what we do here, coming up on 13 years for the Speak On the Show. So I want to start off with something before we get into the news and everything, because there's a lot going on. I wasn't here last week, so I'm going to catch up on some things, but I want to bring this up because mindset, when we talk about our mental health and everything like this, our mindset is a big factor in the things that we do. And, I'm a person, I'm very outgoing. I like to speak to people, talk to people. So I can't remember exactly where I was at, but I was in a store and I was checking out. And there was a young brother behind the counter, and he was checking me out. And me, hey, how you doing today, bro? He said, I'm good, man. How you doing? I said, I'm good. And then my normal response to people is, man, I'm just trying to maintain. The young brother gave me an unwanted, but a well-received lesson in how we speak from our mouths. Now, mind you, being a life coach and things like that, there's certain things that I pay attention to, certain things I need to do to get other people. But sometimes when it comes to getting our mind right, we don't focus on these things. So as I said, this is how the conversation went. I said, how you doing? He said, hey, what's up, man? I said, how you doing today? He said, all right. He said, how you doing? I said, man, I'm doing good, just trying to maintain. The brother responded to me and said, man, I ain't trying to maintain. I'm trying to elevate. Hold that for a minute, y'all. Hold that for a minute. I'm not trying to maintain. I'm trying to elevate. I looked at that brother and I said, thank you. He said, for what? I said, you just, in that simple phrase, you just gave me something that I didn't think was something that I'm speaking into existence from my mouth that is mediocre. Just maintaining means you're status quo. Elevating means you're continually trying to get to the next level. So I had to thank that brother. I shook his hand because it was something that I've been saying for a long time, that it's become so routine and so status quo that I didn't realize how I was putting myself in this box of maintaining the status quo of where I am, not trying to get to another level. Not that I'm not trying mentally, but out of my mouth, I'm speaking, I'm here. I'm here and I'm good. The reason I wanted to bring that up to y'all today is the mentality and what we speak out of our minds can change your mindset so extraordinarily. When the brother hit me with it, I said, and it also gave me this lesson here. Do not think that you can't learn something from anyone. Do not think that you can't learn something or change your direction. And we're going to get into pivoting it later on in the show, but do not think that you can't have a pivot moment from someone that is younger than you, someone that doesn't look like you, or just because it's something that needs to be heard at that time. So I put in my mindset, and I was talking to my wife about this yesterday. I said, the verbiage we use, and we've always heard this, the verbiage we use can cause a stop because we get so conditioned with maintaining that we lose the sight that we shouldn't just be trying to maintain, we should be trying to elevate. And I want to thank that young brother for putting that in me and bestowing that upon me at a time when I wasn't looking for it. I wasn't thinking about it, but I did not hesitate to receive it. Think about that. Think about that as you're going through your travels this week, of things someone may say to you that can alter your thinking or change the direction or the mindset that you have just from one simple conversation. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Let's be real. The good, the bad, and the ugly. But this just so happened to be a good one. So I wanted to share that with y'all. So let's go on and get into this. I got some information for y'all, man. There's some things going on. Headline news is one thing, but there's some things going on that we really need to pay attention to. So let's go and get into this. Let's go. Oh, I hit again. In the news. Now, I told y'all that I'm going to try to veer away from all the politics and things like that, but there's some things that we need to talk about. And here's what I want to tell y'all. I know there's a lot of things going on with this person that's sitting in the White House right now. We've seen all over the news, they're plastering things about this jet this 747 that he's getting from Qatar as a gift, and it's called a grift, and all the things he did in the Middle East and everything. But there's some things going on that should be highlighted that weren't, in my opinion, that I want to highlight, because these things are affecting the everyday citizens and the hypocrisy of what's going on in this country at this time. Now, I've talked about this before, but it came to fruition, I think it was on Monday. First Afrikaners arrive in the U.S. under radically redrawn refugee program. Afrikaners. You remember when I talked about them? These are Afrikaners are people in Africa who have Dutch, descendants that are in Africa, and they were given authorization to come to the United States with no issue if they wanted to leave there. And they put it on the fact that the new South African president is taking land back that was taken from the rightful owners and given to these Afrikaners just because. And now that the South African president is taking the land back, they're looking at they're being discriminated against and things like that. But if you already stole something and now it's being taken back from you, how are you being discriminated from? It's being returned to its rightful owner. But this week on Monday, these folks, these Afrikaners, arrived at Dulles International Airport outside Washington, D.C. in Virginia. Who you see there with them is Troy Edgar, Deputy Homeland Security Secretary, and Christopher Landau, the Deputy Secretary of State. They greeted the family, shaking hands and posing for photos at the airport. And it says this: the first group of white South African refugees, I have a problem with that right there, but let's continue, in the U.S. on Monday under President Trump's executive order mandating they be prioritized for resettlement, even as the broader refugee program remains largely on hold. The 59 Afrikaners, descendant of mainly Dutch colonists, underwent expedited reviews that took months, were brought to the U.S. on government chartered flight. A government chartered flight brought them here and were greeted at Dulles International Airport by federal officials. All unconventional steps for the refugees resettlement program, which can take years to process. Now, let me stop there for a minute. I think we got somebody coming in. P-Roll, my brother, good morning. Appreciate you, bro. Appreciate you. Thanks for tuning in. So these 59 people got a chartered flight from South Africa to come to the United States under a refugee program. Last I checked in South Africa, I haven't heard anything about a war going on. Or let's just put it here. Let me cut through the BS and just say this. They allowed these white, let's just call it what it is, because you see these white South Africaners, to come here under a refugee program that is on hold for anybody and everybody else at this time. They're letting them seek asylum here because South Africa is returning the rightful land to the rightful owners and taking it from them who stole the land from the start. But this administration, this United States of America government, is allowing these people to come here just because. And I'm just going to be clear cut. This has nothing to do with anything that is a war-torn country. Let me just say it this way. All the people that have come here across the border, Haiti, Venezuelans, El Salvadorian, Mexicans, across the Mexican border, across the southern border, were all seeking asylum due to what's going on in their country. And now this administration came in and said, wait a minute. And then we heard it all through the immigration issue is a problem. The immigration issue is a problem depending on what you look like and who wants to allow you to come in. And I want to say this, anybody who voted for this administration under the guise that immigration was an issue, where you at? Where are you at right now? Because this is just the first 59. He opened up to all Afrikaners to be able to come here and be expedited to become U.S. citizens. Now, mind you, one of the main things that people wanted to argue about doing immigration and all this stuff when they talk about the people at the southern border and all this is they're coming in, they're being funded by our government tax dollars and so on and so forth. You know all the arguments. They're giving vouchers, they're giving this, what do you think they're going to do for them? Probably tenfold what they did for the others. Why? Come on. And anybody that voted for this administration is not pissed, you're a hypocrite. Anybody who voted for this administration on the stance that immigration is a problem, you lied to yourself. Immigration was never a problem. It was who was immigrating here was the problem. What the people looked like that were immigrating here was the problem. But you can expedite the people with a minimum amount or lack of melanin content to be able to come here freely, use our tax dollars to live here freely, but not if you have some melanin content within your background, your ancestry, so on and so forth. They ride with their luggage, children don pajamas and carry small American flags. See all the flags they gave them? And stuffed animals as their parents walk them through a private airplane hangar. Welcome to America, Landau told families. I want you to know that you are really welcome here. But their admission to the U.S. has drawn scrutiny from resettlement agencies in the U.S. who have faced sharp budget resources and personnel cuts since Trump took office. Among his first executive actions, Trump temporarily paused the refugee settlement program. Various agencies, including the State Department, have also paused disbursing funding for critical services such as the home, job, and school assistance the Afrikaners are poised to receive. And let's not overlook the fact of why this is happening at all. There's a name of Elon Musk, who is a South African, that is the one who initiated this through the Trump administration for this to happen. So while they're running around laying all these firing, basically, not laying off, firing all these federal employees, talking about they cutting budget. They want to, eliminate spending and fraud, waste. This is fraud, waste, and abuse. This is fraud, waste, and abuse. And I'm going to say again, anybody who voted for this administration is not upset with this, you're a damn hypocrite. Because it has nothing to do with who is migrating here or who is looking for asylum here. It has to do with the complexion for the protection. I know I say it a lot, but let's be real. This is real talk. This is real talk. One of the agencies assisting with the resettlement is the U.S. Committee for Refugees and Immigrants. They are providing services to 14 Afrikaners across Idaho, Iowa, and North Carolina. And this is what they say: we'll continue to do our part regardless of country of origin. Eskinder Nagash, USCRI president and CEO, said in a statement to NPR. We are hopeful that the arrival of this group of refugees indicates the government's intention to restart the U.S. refugee program and help other refugees in need of resettlement services. I'm going to say this, and you can at me if you want. These first 59 is just the tip of the iceberg. I'm going to go out on a limb today because, I like to do that every once in a while and say this resettlement thing that they're doing with these Afrikaners will soon, I want you to hear what I say now, and I want you to document this, will soon be open to anyone who we consider an ally in Europe. I said it. You can take it how you want, but if they're opening it to them, I guarantee in time you will see more Europeans coming here seeking asylum just because this administration is going to okay it. And all those people who are fleeing war-torn countries, third world countries trying to come here for a better life, who were working and doing what they needed to do, were just waiting for the paperwork to come through, and now they're sipping off the jails in El Salvador, places like that. Yeah, they don't count. They don't count. They do not count. And that's where the issue comes in for me. It's just, you can't tell me that this is it's not strictly because of what they look like and how they feel. Come on. We're not new to this. We understand how this works. We all understand. Good morning, sis. Appreciate you. We all understand how this works. Case in point. Also in the news. Let's talk about this. Let's get into this. Google. You remember when we hear when elections are coming up and people running for office? There is no racism in the United States of America. None. We've heard it from many of the Republican politicians, and we still hear it today that there's no racism. There isn't racism, even though they're getting rid of DEI and all the things they're trying to do to HBCUs and so on and so forth. But Google settles racial bias lawsuit with black employees for $50 million. But there's no racism. But it says here, Google settles racial bias lawsuit with black employees for $50 million. The tech giant has settled a lawsuit accusing the company of fostering a racially biased corporate culture that denigrated black employees. On Thursday, May 8th, a preliminary settlement for over 4,000 current and former Google employees in California and New York was filed in the Oakland, California federal court and is awaiting a judge's approval, Reuters reported. The plaintiffs in the class action lawsuit named Curley et al. Versus Google LLC have accused the tech giant of fostering a racially biased corporate culture where management pushes black employees towards lower level jobs, pays them less, scores the performance ratings lower, and further denies them opportunities for advancement. On Thursday, May 8th, a preliminary settlement for over 4,000 current and former employees in California and New York was filed. I just read that. I'm sorry, y'all. The plaintiffs in the case. Why is it on here twice? I'm sorry, y'all. Bear with me. My copy and paste ain't that good. Frank Miller, good morning, my brother. Thanks for that break. Frank Miller, my brother, good morning. Good morning. Appreciate you. So here it goes in. It says, Fox News reported that a lead plaintiff, April Curley, alleges that supervisors stereotyped her as an angry black woman. How many times have we heard that? An angry black woman. According to her, no action was taken to remedy the situation, even after multiple complaints were made to the company's HR. She further alleges she was passed over for promotions and that she was fired after 6 years as she was preparing to report the company's racial bias. On December 21st of 2020, Curley revealed her termination and the reason she alleges was behind it in a thread on X. And this is what she said. And this I love my people. I love my people because we just gonna say, I'm finna tell y'all why Google fired me. Their most successful diversity recruiter in the history of their company, with the receipts to support that statement, she wrote, before detailing her experiences during her tenure and some of the barriers she immediately faced. It also alleged that managers criticized black employees by claiming they were not googly enough. They were not googly enough or were lacking in googliness. Let me read that again. I know it's tongue-tied, but let me say that again. It also alleged that managers criticized black employees by claiming they were not googly enough or were lacking in googliness, which the plaintiffs felt were racial dog whistles. Meanwhile, Google has denied wrongdoing and agreed to settle and said it fully complied with all applicable laws. We strongly disagree with the allegations that we treated anyone improperly, and we remain committed to paying, hiring, and leveling all employees consistently, Google spokeswoman Courtney Mancini said in the email statement to Reuters. But there's no racism in the United States. And just because they didn't admit any wrong does not mean that they weren't wrong. They just not admitting the fact that they're wrong. But they didn't have a problem paying out $50 million to over 400 people that were in the class action lawsuit against Google. However, we still got this going on in the United States of America. Racial bias, prejudice. But we're bringing Afrikaners here. Why? Just because. Because he can. Because he chooses to. That's all it is. That's all it is. And I haven't heard, and this is the thing, I haven't seen or heard any of those Blacks for Trump come out and say anything about this, these Afrikaners coming here. They were adamant about the immigration issue because they said it was taken away from us as the black community and so on and so forth. This is what the Trumpers were saying. But I ain't heard nothing about them. Why? Why? I haven't heard him at all recently. In spite of the things that he's doing to HBCUs, taking funding from HBCUs and so on and so forth, I haven't heard anything from those black Trumpers. Why? Just goes to show All skin folk ain't kinfolk. I said it. All skin folk ain't kinfolk. All skin folk don't have your best interest at hand. The crabs in the barrel mentality, they live it. Now, people will say, well, you can't put all of them in the same category, but they do it to us on a regular. Guilty by association, anything you can think of that deals with us not doing what we're supposed to be doing or what they think we're supposed to be doing. You know, that big Karen thing where you got these Karens walking around trying to point out everything black folks are doing and want to report and call the cops and all this stuff, when in all reality, we were just living, existing in this country. Yeah. So now this one. Yeah. Let's just put it up because there's no use in playing with it. Memphis police officers found not guilty on all state charges in the Tyre Nichols beating death. Now, before I get into this, I want to say this. As you look at the screen here, Tyre Nichols is to my far right. I don't know how he is on your screen. Should be to the far right. The three people with the not guilty over top of their, on the picture, are the three Memphis police officers that were charged with the murder, the beating death of Tyre Nichols. They were found not guilty. Tadarius Bean, Demetrius Haley, and Justin Smith were accused of fatally beating the 29-year-old black man on January 7, 2023. The Tennessee jury cleared three former Memphis police officers Wednesday of all state charges stemming from the fatal beating of a black motorist that sparked protests across the country 2 years ago. Tadarius Dean, Demetrius Haley, and Justin Smith were found not guilty of second-degree murder, among other charges, in the death of Tyre Nichols. Now, for anybody that forgets, they said he was speeding. They pulled him over. They said he tried to fight back. We seen a video where they beat him right outside his car to death. Didn't help him, just beat him. Shelby County Criminal Court Judge James Jones Jr. ordered the men released immediately, though the defendants are still on the hook for federal convictions connected to the beating death. The three officers cleared on Wednesday, and one-time colleagues Desmond Mills Jr. and Emmett Martin are set to be sentenced in federal court during the week of June 16th. Despite considerable legal consequences still ahead of them, all three men were overcome with emotion on Wednesday as they hugged one another and their lawyers in the Memphis courtroom. Now I want to stop there. I'm not going to read this whole article, but I am going to say this because there's some other parts to this that I want to talk about. Notice that they were found not guilty in the state court, but they're still facing federal charges. These three and the other two that they talk about will not see one day in jail. Number one, the police officers. Let's just start there. Qualified immunity. Let's just call it what it is. They will not serve a day in jail, number one, because the state already found them not guilty. Now they're going to federal. Who's in charge of the federal justice system right now? Even if a jury of their peers finds them guilty, I'm going to go out on a limb again. Today's a limb day. I'm going to go out on a limb again and say they will be pardoned by this administration. And you'll say, wait a minute, he's racist. No, let's think about this. These are police officers. These are people that he wants to give qualified immunity to. I would have to apologize to you if he doesn't pardon them, because we've seen the record. We've seen how he does things. Case in point. Let's see, going down this rabbit hole. They're talking about pardoning this guy. You remember him? Derek Chauvin? The one that murdered, let's just get it right, murdered George Floyd. White House responds to rumors of Trump pardoning Derek Chauvin amid renewed call from Marjorie Taylor Greene. As the 5th anniversary of Floyd's murder approaches later this month, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz and Minneapolis officials have indicated they are preparing for the possibility of a presidential pardon for Chauvin and subsequent unrest in the city. I think it behooves us to be prepared for it. With this presidency, it seems like that might be something they would do. Governor Walz recently told reporters. Chauvin, 21 years after was sentenced to 21 years after pleading guilty to federal charges for violating the civil rights of Floyd and a teenager in a separate incident. Chauvin was also sentenced to 22 and a half years in prison for second-degree murder at the state level. Now, this is the reverse of what I was just talking about. So if they pardon him for the federal crimes, he still got to do the state time. 22 years, 22 and a half years. Will he get a pardon? The White House is pushing back saying, no, it hadn't been discussed. We're not talking about it. Don't believe the hype. They're going to wait for one day when all of us are concentrating on somebody else like a Qatari jet, 747 of these being gifted, or something he said ignorant in the news, and he'll just pardon them under the rug where nobody recognizes it, nobody pays attention. Where nobody pays attention. Because they want to call this qualified immunity for all police officers across this nation. No matter what you did, no matter what kind of crime you committed as a police officer, they want to give you qualified immunity, especially when they're killing people of color. Even if the people of color are police officers killing people of color, they feel that they're doing the job that they want them to do. So they'll give them qualified immunity as well and pardon them as well. You have to watch how this system is working. And you've heard me say this many times. It's a system that is not for us, is against us. The system was never built for us. If you think about it, if you go back and read the Constitution, read the amendments and everything, this country's justice system never included people like us. Never. So if it never included people like us, how do you think it's going to protect people like us? They pick and choose how, who, and when they want to allow the justice system to work the way it's supposed to work for them, for people like me and you. Case in point. And I didn't put his picture up, but I'm just going to go into it right now. We've been watching. Well, y'all been watching. Let me just say, y'all been watching. I've been hearing updates. People ask me questions about it. I haven't really been looking at it. Sean Combs is on trial. Sex trafficking and all the different things. Y'all, we've talked about this. You know, they got into the baby oil. They distracted y'all with the baby oil, but nobody was paying attention to all the charges that they were bringing against him. And mind you, he's on trial now. Trial's going on. They had Cassie on the stand this week. I guess there were some things exposed, some very intimate things exposed about who, what, when, where, and why, and all these different things they were doing, these freak offs and all this kind of stuff. And let me stop there for a minute. Let me just tell y'all about me. There's certain things that I can pay attention to. There's certain things I can watch. There's certain things that I'll get into the nitty gritty to be able to give to y'all. I can't do this. And people will say, well, you report on everything, but I can't do this. Because here's where the water gets muddy for me. And I'm just going to put it this way. Whatever he did has allegedly done to whoever. I'm not okay with it. That's not why I'm not reporting it. I'm not okay with it. But I have to sit back and I've read some comments where the victims are being more scrutinized than the perpetrator. We've seen this too many times. And everything when Harvey Weinstein was up, when R. Kelly was up. There's so many things of the perpetrator getting the benefit of the doubt over the people that are testifying against the perpetrator. I can't go down this rabbit hole because I look at it this way. This man has daughters. This man has a mother. This man has aunts. He has female cousins. He has females in his life, or he has females that he's worked with and everything. And the reason I can't go down this rabbit hole with this thing here is because for me, I have a mother, I have aunts, I have a sister, I have cousins, I have a wife. I have a lot of women in my life that I care about. And to see this go on for all the years that it happened, and for all the people that knew it was happening and not jumping in, I can't just hold him accountable because there's a lot of enablers out here There's a lot of enablers that allowed this to happen, knowing that it happened. There was a lot of people that were participating that we haven't heard about yet. Think about that. Names come up here and there, but nothing in depth. Same thing, and I'm going to caveat here again, same thing with the Epstein files. We haven't seen nor heard anything about everything Epstein did on that island. We haven't heard or seen everybody that participated in what he was doing. But the only reason I bring Diddy up today, because I didn't want to talk about this, but he faces 15 years to life in prison if he's convicted of sex trafficking in New York. However, his associates are allegedly trying to cozy up to the Trump administration in hopes of securing a pardon for the rapper in his ongoing sex trafficking case. They're asking ahead of time. They're already trying to finagle the system and get in there with his administration to see if he is found guilty, if there's an opportunity for him to be pardoned. Let that sink in for a minute. You haven't been convicted. You're on trial. The trial has just started this week. And you already have your people, or your people felt the need to already go and start rubbing elbows and, integrating themselves with the Trump administration, looking for a pardon for you. Now, I understand the mindset of innocent until proven guilty. But if my lawyers and my people are already talking to somebody about a pardon and the trial just started, what do they know that we haven't heard? What's going on behind the scenes that they know that we don't know? I just want to put that out there. But I brought that up in conjunction with the police and the Tyree Nichols beating, Derek Chauvin looking for a pardon, and now Puffy's people, Sean Combs' people, looking for a pardon before the trial even gets good. This is where you look at these things and I always ask the question. I say it jokingly because we heard it as kids. What would you do for a Klondike bar? What would you do for a Klondike bar? And I know it sounds crazy, but with kids, the commercial, would you bark, cluck like a chicken, bark like a dog, all that kind of stuff. I don't know if I'm going to take y'all back. But what would you do for a Klondike bar? So when I see these things, I ask, what would you do? What would you do for your freedom? In spite of the fact that you've done everything that they've said you've done, what would you do? What are you willing to give up? Are you willing to sell your soul for your freedom? And then if you are you willing to deal with the consequences of what may happen to you or what they're going to ask you to do? And I want to put this caveat in there, and I know a lot of people don't think this way, but I go down this rabbit hole sometimes. And this is not making an excuse for Sean Combs. But I asked a question to a couple people I was talking to when they were bringing this up. And I said, if this man is doing these things to people, and we're just talking about, concentration right now is just on Cassie. We're not talking about the people that said they went there, got drugged, and they took advantage of them and all these different things. We ain't talking about them yet, but they just talking about Cassie. But I asked a question to somebody. I said, if he felt comfortable doing these things to people to show he's in control or he has power over them, what was done to him? Oh, I'm not trying to throw nothing out there. I'm just asking a question. What was done to him in order to get to where he's at, where he sits, being this media mogul, music mogul of Bad Boy and all that? What was done to him? Because we've heard the stories about Clive Davis, who was his mentor, and the things he supposedly did to up-and-coming artists. What did he do? Now, I'm not making excuses, but I'm asking you a question because I'm asking this question in this way. because we always hear this, and I've said it many times, so I'm going to say it again. Hurt people hurt people. Let me say it one more time for the people in the cheap seats in the back. Hurt people hurt people. And when I say hurt people, I'm not saying that he was hurt to the point of this is his way of acting out. What I'm saying is him maybe, allegedly, could have been taken advantage of in order to get to the status he was at, felt comfortable doing it to other folks. Just a theory. I ain't always right, but a clock is right twice a day. Just saying. Unless you say it on military time, that's another conversation. A broken clock is right twice a day. Unless it's on military time. So I asked that question facetiously, but I ask it honestly because this is something that we don't think about. Hurt people hurt people. So if you've seen this done to you and what it caused you to do to be able to get your fame, how do you sell it to somebody else? Think about that. But all these people that I just talked about are looking for pardons. Why? Not saying they didn't do it. Not saying they didn't do it. They're looking for pardons. So something we always heard, don't do the crime if you can't do the time. Don't do the crime if you can't do the time. Let's go. Straight talk. My home state of Maryland. Shout out Frederick, Maryland. Born and raised. My home state of Maryland got an issue right now. The governor's name is Wes Moore, up and coming politician in the ranks. Everybody's looking up to him. They say, oh, he could be, they always put us in this box. He could be the next Obama. He speaks so eloquently. He's for the people. All these different things they said when he was running and everything like that. But this week, that up and comer, Wes Moore, and I want to caveat with this, the only numero uno black governor, the nation's only black governor, vetoed a bill to study reparations for the people of Maryland. Now, you may be asking, why does it matter? Well, let me ask this question. Why doesn't it matter? And see, I say that because we look at these politicians that don't look like Wes Moore, or don't look like me or anything like that, and we say, oh, they're racist. They don't want to do reparations. They just want to keep us in bondage and all these different narratives we come up with. But then when we have one of our own who we put on this pedestal like he's the next Obama, he's going to do this for us, he's going to do this for us, and he vetoes the study, not giving reparations, but just the study reparations or giving reparations to the people of Maryland. What does that say? What does that tell you? For me, outside looking in, and I didn't read the article at the time, but when I first read it, I was like, oh, he's looking higher. He ain't trying to help y'all. He ain't worrying about the governor. He's trying to ascertain higher in his political ranks. For him, governor, that's just a stepping stone for where he's trying to get to. That's my mindset when I seen this of him turning down just the study of reparations, knowing what reparations is all about. And this is what the article said. Maryland Governor Wes Moore on Friday vetoed a bill that would have required the state to define the economic harms to black descendants of enslaved people and recommend remedies dealing the blow to reparations supporters who counted on the only black governor of a U.S. state to be an ally. An ally or ally. Y'all have heard it before. Because let's just be real. When I say that, people think it's just dealing with white folks. No. We have allies or allies within our ranks. Don't get it twisted. The veto of reparations study was the highest profile of 24 vetoes Moore issued late Friday. The most the governor and rising Democratic star has fought back against the Democratic-controlled legislature during his 2.5 years in office. Moore said, given the state's economic problems, he was focused on laws that helped the state recover from the severe impacts of the Trump administration's federal spending cuts. I was very transparent. This is his statement. I was very transparent with the leadership and members of the General Assembly that anything that fails to meet the urgency of this moment, I will not sign it. And it must wait for another time, Moore said in an interview, calling the reparations study the most challenging of his veto decisions. Moore said he's ready to engage in conversations about repairing the legacy of slavery now, and he doesn't need to wait 2 years for a reparations commission to draft a study. A study group that is saying that they're going to present reports to the governor in 2 years is fine, but the governor is ready to engage now, he said. Moore met with black leaders as recently as Thursday to say he was wrestling with it. Even before his veto of the bill, Moore's unwillingness to embrace a reparations study fostered a mix of betrayal and resignation from leading black supporters who saw the state's first black governor, a candidate who campaigned on tackling the racial wealth gap, as a natural champion in the century-long fight to redress slavery's generational harms. Despite his comments that he is not running for higher office, Moore is widely seen as a potential presidential contender, a pursuit that could be complicated by a record of supporting a policy of reparations, which, according to polling, is politically divisive nationwide. Let me read that part again, because I knew I wasn't the only one, and I came up with this conclusion before I even read the article, but I want to read it to you again so it's clear. Despite his comments that he is not running for higher office, Moore is widely seen as a potential presidential contender, a pursuit that could be complicated by a record of supporting the policy of reparations, which, according to polling, is politically divisive nationwide. Now, I'm not saying he is. I ain't saying he ain't. But if you read the tea leaves, as they say, and as I like to say, the water a little muddy over there. The water's a little muddy. We're going to see how this turns out. And it says everyone is upset about this. Senator C. Anthony Muse, Democrat, Prince George's County, said he led a rally outside Moore's official residence in Annapolis last week, urging the government to sign the reparations bill, said about Moore's lack of support. And he said there will be a real backlash from the black community, not just in Maryland, but nationwide, Muse said, before the vetoes were issued, adding that the leaders of the General Assembly's Black Legislative Caucus, of which he is a member, are broadly baffled by Moore's reluctance. I've had 2 conversations with him about it, Muse said. We all walk away from it the same way. What in the world? Immediately after the veto, the Black Caucus issued a statement noting the study had a veto-proof majority and the legislature will have the final say. The state's first black governor chose to block his historic legislation that would have moved the state toward directly repairing the harm of enslavement, the caucus said in the statement. While unilaterally, executive actions and piecemeal legislation addressing disparities can contribute to progress, they cannot substitute meaningful, sustained, and comprehensive efforts. To advocates, Maryland tackling reparations represented both a concrete and symbolic victory. Now, I'm not going to go all the way through this, as I said, but I want to ask the question for you to ponder. And when I say ponder, I mean think. I know y'all know what ponder is. I just want to put it out there for the people in the back that don't know. Ponder. You remember how we thought, a lot of us thought, that when President Barack Obama was elected, that he was going to do anything and everything for the black community. And he said, he's not for black, he's not for white, he's for all Americans. Remember that? Yeah, that. And then as time went on, he got reelected. Did 2 terms. And then there's people that talk about what did he really do for the African-American black community in those 8 years. One of the big things they talk about is the Affordable Care Act, which is good. But then you have to ask the question of what else can we just come up with off the top of our heads that was good for us as a community? And I ask that question because it's ironic that the week that white Afrikaners are allowed by this administration to come in this country with no process whatsoever but a 1 month time period for them to become U.S. citizens compared to other people who come here for, and it takes years and years and sometimes more than 2 years, 3 years, that they can be fast tracked like that. But then you have a governor, the lone African-American black governor in the United States of America at this time, has a reparations study bill on his desk and he vetoes it. You can't make this up. You can't make this up. So I ask you, and I say this, we have an election coming up in 2026, midterm elections in 2026. It would behoove you, be in your best interest for those that don't behoove. It would behoove you, be in your best interest, to look at each and every person on the ticket and look in depth at what they do, what they vote for, how they feel about anything and everything that is important to you before you just go in there and because he looks like you, or he gives you a dap when he sees you, or he can talk a little slang, or he can do the boots on the ground dance, or any of those type things we can think about that is a cultural thing for us. Before you just go in there and vote for him because he showed up at your men's barbershop conversation or something like that, do your research. Because all these people with Westmore, they put him on this pedestal and everything, and just a study. And he based it on, the veto on, saving money because of the cuts to federal funding that the Trump administration is doing. And it's not time right now. When is the time? How many times have we heard, and how many years have we heard over and over again? Now is not the time. When it comes to us, by our own politicians, it's not our time. It's not time right now. I have to be frugal with the budget because of this cut, that cut, and everything, but they're not frugal when it comes to other things. They weren't frugal in this government when they gave the Japanese all that money. They weren't frugal when they gave the Jewish people, and it ain't nothing against the Japanese or the Jewish people. I'm using examples. It wasn't frugal when they paid them out because of the Holocaust or the internment camps or any of those type things. But it just seemed that we never have the money to do anything when it comes to people of color. Specifically, black African Americans in this country who have served this country proudly through the military and everything, the GI Bill when they came back from fighting wars, housing. Anytime it comes to us getting something, it's always not the right time. And then when our politicians get in there that look like us, they start trumpeting the same phrase. Now is not the time. Well, when is the damn time? When is the time? For all my people in Maryland, y'all, I get it. I get it. I'm not there every day to hear everything, but when I seen this, it raises an alarm for me. It raises an alarm for me because if you're going to tell me the only reason you're not going through with this study is because of funding, but you got funding for everything else, when is the time? Come on. Come on. These are the things that when I see them, yeah, I get upset because you can't tell me now is not the right time. 400 years of slavery and we still talking about now's not the right time. Come on. What are we doing? And you can't sit in my face and tell me all about my people when you're in a position to do something for my people and you choose not to. That's the issue I have. That's the issue. If you're worried about your political career, say that. Don't give me it's not time. If you're worried about not being reelected or something of that nature, say that. But don't give me the thing it's not time. It was time when you ran. It was time when you was out there doing the line dances with everybody and boot scoop boogieing at the Black Caucus and all those type things. It was the right time then amongst your people. But when it comes time for us to get something, not that we're asking for, but something that we're owed, it's not time. Why? And it only happens with us. It only happens with us. It's never the right time when it comes to us. Never. We got money for millionaire tax breaks, federal funding that we pay taxes into. They got money for tax breaks for the wealthy. They got money to bring people here that aren't even seeking asylum because of a war-torn country. We got money for that. We got money for this, money for that. We got money for this president to fly to the Middle East and make backdoor deals that's going to benefit him after he leaves office. We got money for all these things. But no money for the pain and suffering of the ancestors, of our ancestors that built this country. Not the right time. Not the right time. When's the right time? I'll wait. Oh, I'll definitely wait. I'm trying to figure out when the right time is. Let me decompress for a minute, y'all. I got something I want to run past you. I got a new segment that I'm going to put in every once in a while. In conjunction, I'll have the mind, body, and soul, but I also want to have this segment too, to go along with what my new venture is. And this segment is called the Coach's Corner. Coach's Corner. And I'm going to give you some morsels, some little morsels, breadcrumbs that you can pick up and run with, as we did on the last episode when we talked about being silent isn't, oh Lord. I just lost my train of thought, y'all. I was so caught up in the Westmore thing, I can't get my... Being silent isn't strong. It isn't a sign of strength. That's what it was, something to that extent. But yeah, the Coach's Corner. This is from my Life Justice Coaching Solutions. And today, I want to get into something that we hear often, but we don't really know. And it goes along with what I said in the beginning with the young man who changed my mindset and my thinking from just maintaining to elevating. And it goes into this. Today, it's about the pivot. When life forces you to reroute. When life forces you to reroute, we call it a pivot, we call it redirection, we call all these things. And it starts off with the power of the pivot. When life forces you to reroute. And we're going to touch on what is a pivot, when life forces to reroute, the power behind it, embracing the pivot, and name your pivot. You know, the pivot is that unexpected turn you have to take. When you're going down this road and you're doing everything you think you be doing, and then one day something clicks and says, "Woo, I need to do this a little differently." And a lot of times we always look at it as a change, but sometimes when people hear change, barriers come up. They get scared because change is a word that a lot of people don't want to hear. So they integrated this pivot, where you pivot from the direction you're going to a different. I know in basketball, you got your pivot foot. When you're trying to break somebody down, that's another conversation, but let me get into this. An unexpected turn, a detour. This ain't how I planned it moment. The one that we get often when we make a decision and be like, I got to make a different move. So what is a pivot really? A pivot isn't a breakdown, it's a redirection. It's life tapping you on the shoulder saying, that ain't the way no more. Come on, let's go this way. You know that thing up on your shoulder that tells you this ain't the move? Yeah. You thought the job, the relationship, the path you were on was it. You thought this was it. This is the job I've always dreamed of and everything. And then you get in there and it's like, this job has exhausted all possibilities that I thought would present itself. I need to pivot. Because life says, nope, change plans. Change plans. I got to redirect which way I'm going, what I'm going, how I'm going about it. And it's not that anything is a failure. It's just that you recognize that this is not the direction that I thought I was going to be able to go in. And now I need to pivot for a new direction. Change course. It's just like when you set goals. Sometimes you set goals and you have to reimagine those goals in a different light in order for you to still be able to be on track. Here's the thing. As I said, it feels like failure at first when it's actually not. It's a redirection, a rerouting, a pivot. Why? Because we love control. We have to be in control. And when we're not in control, we think that we failed at something. We love structure. We love knowing what's next. But growth rarely comes from comfort zones. I always say this phrase, you got to get comfortable being uncomfortable. If you're comfortable in the places you go each and every day, you need to find a place where you're uncomfortable in order for you to grow. In order for you to grow, you got to be uncomfortable sometimes. Growth lives in a pivot. When life forces the reroute, let's be real. Let's just be straight up honest. Sometimes the pivot ain't pretty. The pivot is not pretty. So sometimes we got to step back for a minute when that pivot ain't pretty and say, okay, what now? What now? You lose your job. You go through a relationship that you've been in 10, 25 years, 1 month, whatever. It ends. Your health. Let's talk about the health. Your health shifts. You're very healthy and everything. You're doing everything you need to do. Then something pops up that unexpected because you're taking care of everything. But it's just like in your car. Let me break it down like this. Just like in your car. Everything's running fine. And all of a sudden, one of them lights come on. And you're wondering what's going on, what's happening. And the extent of your worry has grown so large. But when you realize what went wrong, it's something the size of a gasket. Something the size of a gasket, because we go to the extreme of thinking that everything's falling apart. Everything's falling apart. The dream gets delayed. I was listening to something the other day and said, what's delayed is not denied. What's delayed is not denied. That's saying that even though what you want in life may not come today, that doesn't mean it won't come at a certain time. You have to prepare yourself for those things that you're working for and that you want to achieve. What's delayed is not denied. If it's denied, it's because you chose not to continue pursuing what you want. A delay could be a good thing, especially when you're talking about that pivot. The door you prayed would open slam shut. Now, we've all had this where you go to a job interview, this door's open, everything, and you didn't get the job. Don't give up. Pivot. If you didn't get that job, what went wrong? Why didn't they want you? I say it that way. Well, they don't want me. Why didn't they want you? What do you need to change? What you need to redirect? Maybe you need to put your energy somewhere else. Maybe it's time for you to look outside the box at doing something different than what you've been doing for so long. Those are those pivot moments. Those are those pivot moments. The rerouting of your mind. Think about this. When you're in your car and you put an address in your GPS, and you're driving and you see traffic, because we might not have one of them GPSs to tell you traffic up ahead or whatever, but you see traffic. So you decide to take a right turn because you know that GPS is going to buffer and it's going to reroute you to get you back on track where you're going. Think about all the times in your mind and in your life that those things have happened where you had to reroute. Because if you make the right turn and it reroutes and it tells you to make a left turn and you make another right turn and it has to reroute over and over, each time you go a different way than it wants to, it's rerouting you. And we follow this because we believe in that system getting us to our destination. That's where you come into play and believing in yourself to get where you need to get to, no matter how many times you have to reroute. See, we'll trust technology, but we won't trust our mentality in a lot of cases when we have to reroute. We think, oh, is this the right decision? Make the decision and stand on that decision, because even if that decision is not the right one at that time, you have an opportunity to reroute, to pivot to another decision. Don't get caught up in it. What delayed is not denied. You're sitting here like, God, what's happening? Because, we always talk to God when something's wrong, but, I'm a caveat here. We're going to go to him enough when things are going right and just saying thank you. But that's for another show. Let's continue. But in that moment, you feel lost. You want to know what's happening. What's happening with your alignment? What's happening with the plan? The plan that you established, what's going wrong? You're being positioned for something better. But first, you have to let go of what was. See, even when we reroute and we repivot, we still hold on to the fact of, well, I knew I had it right this way, but I'm gonna go ahead and try this way. But now that we have a new plan, we went to plan B, we still hold on to plan A. But plan B is the pivot, but we're still holding on to plan A. Don't hold on to it. Change your thinking. Change that plan B to plan A now and follow that route. Here's a quote that I found too. The pivot is painful, but it's not punishment. It's preparation. The pivot is painful, but it's not punishment. It's preparation. It's preparation for the next step in what you're trying to do in your journey. Where you been, where you at, where you going. Where you been, where you at, where you going. The journey. And let's go with the power behind the pivot. These are things that the pivot teaches us. When you decide to make those pivot. Resilience. You learn you're built for more than you thought you were built for. You find a new way and you find something in you that lets you know you can bounce back and redirect from anything that's thrown your way. Perspective. Your vision is clearer. The detour shows you what the destination couldn't. The detour shows you what the destination couldn't. So you're so focused on the destination that you don't see everything around you. But when you pivot, you start opening your eyes more because you're paying more attention. Faith. You stop relying on your plan and start trusting your purpose. Now, this is the main one here. You stop relying on your plan and start trusting your purpose. See, when we talk about purpose, a lot of people get caught up because I don't know my purpose. You know your purpose. You don't have to search for your purpose. You're walking in your purpose each and every day you wake up. You just haven't realized it. Everyone around you sees your purpose. You don't see your purpose. Sometimes life makes you reroute because you were limiting yourself. Now, this is a big one here. Sometimes we pigeonhole ourselves into this box because we think we're not good enough for anything other than this box. But life makes you reroute because your potential is much greater than your doubt. Your potential is much bigger than any doubt you can cast upon yourself. Or it goes into the situation was too small. Some of us, we're bigger. We're too big for the box that we put ourselves in. So we got arms hanging out and everything else. The position you put yourself in is too small for who you are. Get out of that thinking. That person couldn't go where you're headed. Sometimes you got to leave people behind when you pivot. You might have people on the same track as you, and then you hit that pivot where you got to make a pivot. You got to leave them where they're at. Don't go back and find them. They'll catch up if their direction is the same direction as yours. It's just like anything else in life. You're going to lose people as you elevate. That plan was safe, but it wasn't stretching you. See, and this is another thing. We get in that safe zone because it's comfortable. It feels safe. But I'll ask this question. Sometimes when you're uncomfortable, don't you feel safer because you're relying on you? You're digging into your inner self and letting you know, talking to yourself, letting you know it's going to be all right. Being uncomfortable sparks something in you to dig into everything and anything you know about you in order to make it through, whether you're persevering or resilient about whatever. Digging deep into yourself opens your eyes to so many things that when you're comfortable, your vision sometimes gets blurry to the point that you get that, what do they call it, nearsighted or farsighted. I don't know how they do it with one, but you get nearsighted where you can only see this far because you're comfortable and that's all you can see. When you get uncomfortable, now you got to open your eyes and see everything because you're in unfamiliar territory. You have to be able to know what your surroundings are. We do that so often in our lives that we put ourselves in this box, as I mentioned. The pivot introduces you to the version of you that the old path couldn't reach. Let me say that for the people in the back that didn't hear this. Listen, this is clear now. The pivot introduces you to the version of you that the old path couldn't reach. It goes along with what I say with the Life Justice coaching. Awaken the best version of you. The best version of you is already in you. You just need to set that alarm clock and wake it up. Stop just going through the motions of life. Stop just going through the motions of life and start living life. But when we talk about the pivot is a part of life. You have to make these decisions, and it doesn't have to be split-second decisions. It shouldn't be. But there's going to be times where you're going to have to wait. You're going to have to look at things and say, "Ooh, I got to redirect. I got to reroute this. I got to look at a better way." And then number 4, embracing the pivot. How do you stop resisting the pivot and start owning it? How do you resist the pivot and start owning it? My older brother, Terrence, shout out. I always hear him saying, he told me something he always tells his girls: own your shit. Sorry, Ma, I had to put it out there. Own your shit. If you mess up, own it. If you do something wrong, own it. Well, this happened, own it. That's where a lot of us fall short, because we don't own our lives. And I got something coming, and I don't want to get into that right now, but there's some things coming about owning your life, but we'll get into that a little later. But own your shit. That's right. Right, wrong, and different. Own it. Own it. Stop asking why me and start asking what now. You know, I know during George Floyd, after the murder of George Floyd and different things that were going on, I asked a question on a couple of my posts: what now? Where do we go from here? You should do that with your life. Asking why me? Why this happened to me? No, what now? What's my next step going forward? Get still. Every pivot needs pause and perspective. That's one thing we don't do. See, we make crash decisions at a time where we need to pause and look at the big picture. Look at everything that's going on and ask ourselves, why am I pivoting? What do I need to do with this pivot? And how am I going to make this pivot successful from what I was doing before to make this more successful going forward? Detach from the plan, not the purpose. And that's a big one. Do not lose focus of the purpose of why you're on this journey. It's just a plan. It's just a plan of the journey, not the purpose of the journey. It's just the plan of the journey, not the purpose of the journey. Surround yourself with real ones. Now, that's a big one. You need people who can remind you this pivot has purpose. Surround yourself with real ones. Not them fake ones, not them ones just going along for the ride, them hanger-ons and enablers and all that kind of stuff. Find real ones to go on this journey with you. Speak life over the shift. Your words matter in the waiting. That's what I talked about earlier. Rather than maintaining, I'm elevating. Your words matter during this shift. Speak it into existence. Speak to yourself. I told y'all, a couple weeks ago, look in that mirror. No, ain't nothing wrong with doing that mirror work. Look in the mirror. Talk to yourself. Talk to yourself. The challenge for this week with this, name your pivot. What's your pivot? How are you pivoting? I want you to name your pivot. Call it out, write it down, speak it out loud. What is your pivot? What is right now where you feel stagnant, where you feel stuck, whether it's a job, whether it's a relationship, whether it's how you parent, any of the things you feel stuck in, now is the time to identify your pivot. How are you going to pivot? Name your pivot. What season are you in? What's shifting in your season? What are you being called to release? Now, and what are you being called into? Because here's the thing. As I always tell you, I'm not a religious person, I'm a very spiritual person. But there's certain things you got to let go. You got to let go. I was talking to a buddy of mine the other day. I said, one of the biggest things that we do is we go through our trials and tribulations and everything, and we carry shame of things that have gone on in our life with us because we never take time to forgive ourselves. So we carry that shame through each and every step of our life. Something that happened that you did maybe when you was 20, have you come to grips with that? Was that decision that you made and the shame that you carry that goes along with that because you think people still hold you to that account 30, 40 years later? You have to forgive yourself and let that shame go during this pivot. You can't carry that shame into each and everything you do in life. Ask for forgiveness and move on. That'll stunt your pivot growth if you continue carrying that around. Say this out loud. I want you to say this out loud. I trust the pivot. I'm not stuck. I'm being sent. I trust the pivot. I'm not stuck. I'm being sent. And let the world know, and let the people around you know, pivots don't break us. They build us. Pivots don't break us down. They build us up. Name the pivot. The last thing I want to say about this is the path may change. The path may change, but the purpose doesn't. The path may change, but the purpose doesn't. The path may change, but the purpose doesn't. Keep saying that to yourself. The path may change, but the purpose doesn't. When you go out here and you get in your car and you're going somewhere and you decide to go a different way than what the direction you thought you were going, you're still going to the same destination. You're just taking a different path. The path may change, but the purpose doesn't. So if life is rerouting you, don't panic. Don't freeze. Don't fight it. Reroute. Pivot. Pivot with power. Shift with faith. And trust that sometimes the unplanned path is the one that leads to everything you've been praying for. You got this. You got this. Each of you, you're adjusting, you're evolving, and you're staying open to everything that is possible in your life. Keep pushing. The pivot, when life forces you to reroute, not a bad thing. It's a good thing. Because on that rerouting, you may find a different version of you. You may wake up something that has been hidden in you for so long that you didn't even know you were capable of. And it only got exposed and it only came to the forefront because you had to pivot. Because most of the time what we find out is we don't like to pivot because we're comfortable. We're in that space where we're comfortable, so we don't pivot to make it uncomfortable. And that uncomfortable feeling causes us to revert back to where we were at. Nah. When you pivot, stay true to the path because that path may change. Stay true to the purpose because even though your path may change, the purpose is always the reason why. Don't change that and don't lose sight of that. The path may change, but the purpose doesn't. Stick with that. And this has been the Coach's Corner for the day. I appreciate everybody tuning in. I'm going to get off here. I got some other things to take care of today. I appreciate everybody tuning in. Got some things coming up. Stay tuned. Like, share, subscribe to the Rodney W College channel. Oh, Lord. Y'all got me tongue-tied. It's been a long morning, y'all. Been a long morning. Let's go back to this. Let's see. Here we go. Subscribe, like, share, subscribe to the Rodney W College channel on YouTube and Facebook. We're here every Saturday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific. Share for your friends. Get them involved. Let's talk about some things. Also, I got some things coming up where there's life coaching things. I'm going to have a separate podcast specifically for that. I'm working on that now, so y'all stay tuned. Haven't come up with a name yet. I'm working on that. But I guarantee, in the infamous words of Charles Barkley, guarantee it's going to help you somehow, some way with what I got coming with the life coaching. Y'all stay tuned. I appreciate y'all supporting me, man. And, y'all riding with me. It's been almost 13 years and y'all still riding with me. So I appreciate it. I love y'all. And let's keep doing what we're doing, man. Let's keep doing what we're doing here on the Rodney W College Speaker on the show. Russell Jenkins, I missed out on you, brother. Good morning. Good morning. Appreciate you. Jacqueline Diggs Barnett. Wow, very profound advice. Thanks. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. And we're going to give you more. We're going to keep giving you more and more and more. We're going to get into the things that are going on in the world around us, but I also want to get into touching on the things that we need to work on and what we need to do for ourselves. The pivot. Always remember, the path may change, but the purpose doesn't. Same thing with this show, what I'm doing. The things we talk about may change, but the purpose of the show doesn't. Speak on it. We're going to speak on the things that are wrong. We're going to speak on the things that are right. But no matter what, we're going to speak on it on this show. Let me get off here. I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. And as I always say before I sign off, love yourself, love one another, keep your head up, and most definitely Keep your faith in God. I love y'all, and I'll see y'all again next week, and I'm out. Peace.